All right, Malcolm. So where do I want to start? Malcolm X. Okay. First time on set.
Was that my first time on
Right.
set?
Or was it your first credit?
Let me think about that. It wasn't the first time I was on set. It was, I think, the first time I was on set as a production assistant from the beginning to the end. In fact, Spike had asked me to. It was my junior year at Georgetown, and Spike calls me and he says, "Malcolm." I said, "Yeah." I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing next year?" I said, "I'm graduating." You know. He said, "Take a year off. Work on Malcolm X." I said, "Okay."
But first of all, for the folks who don't know, Spike is
My cousin.
right.
Spike is my cousin.
Just for the person watching, like, how the hell is Spike just gonna tell you that?
It's true. It's true. Spike Lee is my cousin, and he, in fact, when he was in film school, he lived in my parents' basement.
Wow.
Yeah. He wasn't getting along with his dad, and everything.
And how old were you?
I was 13.
So he in the crib, you.
I didn't know what he was doing. Like my conception of movies for the theater were, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, things like that. So it was inconceivable to me that someone in my family and someone black, could be making movies for the theater. And I would see him on his flatbed, his editing machine called a Steenbeck, and he'd be editing his stuff, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "I'm making movies." I was like, "For the theater?" He was like, "Yeah." I was like, this did not compute. So, obviously years later, he made She's Gotta Have It and identified a starving audience.
Right.
And, from then on, it was like, oh, this is possible. And I was, organically, I was interested in fine and performing arts. I like to draw, I like to act, I like to write, improvise, play with my action figures and do things like that. So that was natural to me. And so when he was doing it, it was like, oh, I think I want to try this. And so by the time I was 19, freshman year at Georgetown, I was like, okay, I want to be a filmmaker. I got to work with Spike quite a bit, on school days as a production assistant, Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, but always when they were in their pre-production stages.
Right.
So he calls me, he says, work on this movie, and I was like, okay. So, I had to work out with the administration.
Now, hold up. He said, take us a year off.
Take a year off.
Did he call your parents?
No, I called my parents. Now, mind you, it was funny. Here's the thing. Here's the funny story. So Spike, I was going to the summer between my junior and senior year in high school. He said, "What are you doing this summer?" I said, "I'm going to work at a day camp." I've been working at a day camp for the past 3 years. He was like, how much are you making? I was like, oh, I think I was going to make $125 a week. And I was like, yeah, I was proud of that. And he was like, that's terrible. So I can get you a job working at Paragon, which was a sporting goods store, or I can maybe get you a job working with me. I was like, yeah, free sneakers. I'm working I'm working at Paragon. And then my mother was like, are you crazy? You're gonna work for your cousin. I was like, okay. So that's how that started. And so, yeah, no. So when it came to my junior year of college, he bypassed my parents. He was like, this is an opportunity. And so I talked to him about it. Like, yeah, this is a great opportunity. See what you have to do. Got the leave of absence from school. I got to work in the casting department. And then I got to go on the set as a production assistant. And it was very hard, because nothing prepares you for that unless you've done it. And you have to pack everything as a production assistant. You have to pack, extra layers of clothing, boots, everything that's gonna make sure And you have to have the walkies charged, and because you are set operations, you have to make sure.
So you're like the football equipment manager. And the bottom line is, if it rains, you better have them rain cleats.
Oh yeah.
If it's, I mean, you don't look up and
no, you
ain't
can't.
packed the cleats.
Listen, if you cold, that's your problem. You know what I mean? And there were a couple times I was cold. Because we remember we were shooting in Fishkill, New York. We were shooting when they burned down Malcolm's parents' house. It was so cold. I don't think I've ever been that cold in my life. But you know, and I was tired because I had played basketball, not really thinking, you know, earlier in the day, not thinking that we were going to be out all night or whatever. So you live and learn. But it was funny too because, you know, it was around Thanksgiving, and you know, as people famously know, Spike went over budget on Malcolm X, and there was a bonding company that was like an insurance policy that was there and was like, you're over budget, and we're slashing every department in half. So they slashed all the departments, and all kinds of stuff happened, and then so. The ship got righted or whatever, and you know it was fine for, you know, with me, and then Spike. I remember we wrapped, not wrapped. We broke for lunch, and I was on set with him. Which, you know, slowly I made my way towards working on set. Because usually, you know, you're like 5 blocks away, locking up the street. But I was on set with him. We called lunch. He said, "Now mind you," he said, "take a year off." So he says to me, "When are you going back to school?" I said, Spike, you told me to take the year off. He's like, "Nah." I said, "What? So I'm not going to Egypt, I'm not going to Mecca, I'm not going to South Africa?" "Nah." So I was like, holy shit. I gotta like call the school up. And you know, look, it all worked out. It was fine. And because I graduated on time, and I also got to be in the editing department on Malcolm X too. And so, you know, the thing about, you know, what was particularly special about that movie, obviously, I was named after Malcolm X. And, you know, I always kind of carried that, you know, that the importance of that name and who he was. And in fact, you know, before I worked on Malcolm X, I did a play at Georgetown called El Haj Malik Shabazz, which was, you know, like N.R. Davidson was the author. And, there were 10 actors in a black box theater who played different parts, different aspects of Malcolm X. From the time he was Malcolm Little, his parents, you know, when he was a street hustler, all this up until he was assassinated. And so I remember the day that we were shooting the scene when he gets assassinated at the actual Audubon ballroom. It was very, very heavy. You could feel Malcolm's spirit in the room, and it was just like, it was a very, very somber couple of days shooting that. So, yeah, it was a good experience. I was actually an extra in Do the Right Thing, and I'm in it. Yeah. So if you watch that movie, there's a scene between Sal and Pino, right? Sal's on the right. No, I'm sorry. Sal's on the left, Pino's on the right, and they're at the window. And it's a slow creeping in. I believe it's probably a crane shot where it just pushes all slowly as they're having this conversation. It's a beautiful shot that Ernest and Spike, you know, put together. And as it rests, I walk by in like freaking yellow and black spandex. You know, it was the fashion du jour.
So you in Do the Right Thing?
I was in it. I'm in it. I made the cut.
Unlike somebody saying I was in Girls Trip.
You were in Girls Trip. You are in Girls Trip.
Where?
Yeah, you are there during.
I literally did not.
During the new edition, If It Isn't Love, you're there. There's a shot of you in there, dancing.
I knew I was there.
White jacket on, ascot, you was getting down.
I knew I was there.
No, man, you're in there.
Because you were like, bro, we need to borrow your seats.
But that was 2 nights later.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go back.
Yeah, yo, look at it. When New Edition's on stage, you're there. Swear to God. Swear to God, you're in there.
I'm gonna go back to the PA piece, because here's why I think that is so crucial. It's always interesting when students come up to me and they say, I want to do what you do. And I then say, but do you want to do what I did?
Right.
Then they're like, what do you mean? I said, all of that, I still do. And they're like, okay, I don't understand. I said, that stuff, that basic, so I went to the Magnet School of Communications. We couldn't even go into the studio. We had a television studio. We couldn't even go into the studio the first semester. We had to learn glossary terms. We had cable tests. We had to know exactly what this audio cable, this, XLR, quarter inch, 1/8, every single, because when you walked in there, the whole deal was, if somebody said something, you need to know exactly what to get. And I tell people all the time, that is foundational. You can't have, and then what she did was Mary Waits, whenever she would make us watch movies, but what she would make, as a part of the process. And so normally, movie's over, get up, no.
Sure.
It would end the absolute last credit, because she would always say, that's how the movie got made. Every single one of those people played a crucial role. And that's the thing I tell folks all the time. You have to, when you said the experience, you have to be in it. And you've got to stand there, and they're not talking to you, but you're listening as they're talking, as they're saying stuff. And that's what drives me crazy today with folk who they're grabbing that phone, and I've had and it was like, hey, I remember I was a young lady, Elise, here and I were talking, and I turn around, she's on the phone, like, hey, she's like, you talking to him? I'm like, but you can be learning while I'm talking to him.
Yeah.
And people don't understand how valuable that is.
No, it's true. I mean, unfortunately, we're in this era and this stage where, we are addicted to our phones, and we're just a slave to it. So if we're not being addressed directly, it's like this. And it's particularly, my son's age, and even us, as adults, not that my kids aren't adults, but you know what I'm saying, like people who did not grow up with this and have it as a thing. It's very true that you can get distracted by that, because I learned so much by observing.
There you go.
Right? When I was Spike's assistant on Clockers, and really that job was just, to do playback for him, right? And I got to just see how he moved the camera, how he directed actors, how he framed shots. And that was like a year of film school, that summer.
But also studying movement.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I watch people shoot, I'm watching their feet. I'm watching how they moving back, moving forward. Same thing.
Yeah.
You have to be in it.
You do.
To see it and then go, oh, okay, I see how that move happened.
Yeah, and it's like you don't necessarily have to adopt what he did. There's a reason he's framed it this way. And and there's a reason why the camera is moving here and here. It's all telling a story. And prior to that, I wasn't good at framing or good at moving the camera. So I'm like, okay. So when I came into doing my second year movie at NYU, I knew what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And so observation is crucial, because you can't always be like, hey, so what do you think about that? What are you doing? They got a job to do, right? Like, Spike got a movie to make, not to be teaching me on the side, right? As being a PA was important. I didn't always like it. Most of them did not like it at all. But it teaches you to be the low person on a totem pole, and to say hey, when I do it, or if I get to do it, if I'm so fortunate enough to do it,
right, then
I know what it's like.
I had a person who did not. One of my guys said, "Yo, Roland needs some water," and she goes, "I don't get water," and then the EP, it's straight up, and then Jay was he was directing EP. It was Jay, and Jay's been in the business 5 decades.
Yeah.
Jay said, "Come here." He said, "Let me explain something to you. I've gone and gotten his water." She says, I need you to understand something. If he thirsty, you go get that water.
Absolutely.
He's like, ain't no titles here. He said, he might be director, I might be the executive producer, but if he needs some water, and I'm looking around, I'm gonna get a bottle of water. And trying to understand that title stuff, no. You gotta get it done.
Well, unfortunately, again, we observe it, and you know, that's not how we were brought up. That's not how we, you know, learned the business. And it's like, you gotta do what you gotta do. You don't always have to like it,
Right.
but you gotta do it.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
I am very observant. I spoke at Texas Southern University, and I never forget. It was a National Association of Black Journalists. I remember there were some students from Langston University, and so I'm sitting here, and I'm leading the session, and I'm noticing, like, even when it was over, we were packing stuff up, and there was one particular sister. She was, without being prompted, she came back with this. Came back with this, and I'm watching. Now, I'm watching all the students, but I'm watching to see who's actually paying attention.
Right.
And what ends up happening is that's who I suggested for an opportunity, because she wasn't told to do any of this, but she said, oh, he needs this here. Came back and got it. And it happened 2 or 3 times, and I went,
I love that.
boom, she's the one.
You know why? Because, you know, you anticipate problems. You got to anticipate, and, like, you know, you also just want to be proactive, right?
And nobody told her to do it.
But that's what's beautiful about it, is that person's going to be a producer.
And and I'm watching, and I was kind of like, and I'm looking at the rest of them, completely oblivious, like, whatever.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, that's who will get the call.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of unfortunately, there's a lot of instant gratification that a lot of kids are used to, younger generation is used to. And I know I sound like the old man in the, you know, to get off my lawn, but, you know, it's like they from the time that they've been young, DVR, you know, VCR, DVDs, like.
And it was no different with us in Gen X. There were people who we went to school with who were the same.
Right.
And it was like, oh, you ain't gonna be able to hack this.
Yeah.
Because they were just, they were cats who I went to school with. And it was just sort of like, well, but she didn't ask. And I'm going, but it needs to get done.
Right.
And it's kind of like, okay, all right.
Yeah, you know, and so I'm very glad that I grew up in the era that I grew up in, and I was able to kind of say, okay, like, you know, not always knew what was expected of me, but, you know, being told to do something and, like, you know, having to do it, whether it's begrudgingly or not, it's like, this is a means to an end. And I think that's what, you know, got me as far as I've gotten, because it's like, you know, I don't want to do this forever. I don't want to be, you know, being a gopher forever. And in fact, you know, I was Spike's assistant on Clockers and what they call the director trainee on Girl 6. Now, it was the same freaking job. And I was like, okay, I've gone as far as I can go with Spike. I can't.
Meaning, I knew this is, now it's time for me to graduate.
Yeah, but check this out. I was writing scripts. I was trying to get a job, you know, any kind, part-time job, whatever. Spike was doing He Got Game. I was like, well, you know, let me see if I'll ask him if he got. I said, hey, Spike, you know, kind of looking for a gig. He was like, nah. Can't help you. Sorry.
And you were like,
I was like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like somebody else has to have the chance now.
so his whole deal was, okay, it was time for you to move on.
It's time for you to move on. It's time for you to fly from the coop and do your own thing. And you know what? Like, I'll never forget that. And I was upset and disappointed. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I was like, okay, well, now what you gonna do?
Right.
You gotta like make something else happen. So, fortunately, you know, that was what 96, 97, something like that. And no, it was 96, I think. And that summer I wrote, summer of 97, I wrote The Best Man. It was called My Homeboy's Wedding at first. And I knew it was never gonna be that title, but
Right.
But I don't know, I was like, and I was very mercenary about that. I was like, you know, I have to, because I was planning on directing another script that I had written.
Uh-huh.
A romantic comedy, kind of like an ode to New York, like When Harry Met Sally or Annie Hall. And, you know, I said, I'm gonna make this movie. And I'm gonna write something so commercial. I'm gonna sell it, and I'm gonna use the money to make my movie. And that was The Best Man that I wrote.
Wow.
And I was timing it to come out to be ready by the time the movie Soul Food was gonna come out. Now, George Tillman did not have a track record at that point, but Babyface and Tracy Edmonds were producing it. It starred, you know, Nia Long and Vivica Fox and Vanessa Williams, and was going to be just about a family on the south side of Chicago, nothing to do with drugs or violence or gang violence or anything or abuse. And I was like, okay, if this movie does well, where they can just see regular black people doing regular shit, then this is going to...
Because the reality in Hollywood, that a single black, quote, black film, everything else is in pre-production, is in the pipeline, can be held up or boosted by the success of that one. I think about Just Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
Didn't do like we thought it. So a number of romantic comedies got put on the shelf.
Oh yeah.
Because of that one movie.
Yeah. But that's what happens. But by the way, that's what happens. As you can see, it's a copycat industry,
yes.
right? You don't have, you know, like Deep Impact and Armageddon don't happen by accident. Because people are thinking, oh, there's in the news, there's an asteroid headed towards Earth. Well, let's make a movie about that. But, you know, Michael Bay did one, and I think Catherine Bigelow, I can't remember. But it's just, you know, but yes, there's a lot more pressure on a black-themed movie. And, you know, if Soul Food was gonna do well, they were gonna look for the next Soul Food.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Best Man felt like, you know, castable, relatable, universal, and not that expensive.
So you wrote it in 97 and then...
Wrote it in 97, in time for Soul Food. We went, Spike had had a deal at Sony, and he in fact read that script and was like, this is the one. Now I'd written 5 screenplays, you know, prior to that. And, you know, he was, oh, this is the one. And so next thing I knew, I was being flown out to meet with the head of the Sony. And so he had a deal at Sony at the time, but they had problems with the script. They thought it needed some work. Spike said, no, we're moving on. We're going to Disney. And we had a meeting at Disney. They were like, oh, it's great, but they didn't want to do it. So we went to a couple other places, didn't land anywhere, tried to get some talent attached that didn't attach to the movie. And so we went maybe later that March, Academy Awards, Spike is nominated for 4 Little Girls. I said, okay, Universal Pictures is looking for a black romantic comedy, and we'll hear what they have to say, and if they do have to do some notes, we do notes. I said, yes, Spike, please, let's cooperate.
Mr. No.
Yeah, he was like, F that, you know, we out of here. You know, if they don't want to do it later for them.
And you like, that's you, Spike.
Yeah,
That's
me. Like, I'm just starting out. Like let's work with them. Let's see what the white folks have to say. Let's try to work with them. You know what I mean?
You like, bruh.
Yeah, I was like, homeboy, like, come on, like, let's slow down a bit. So fortunately, we sat with them. They liked it. Spike said, My cousin's gonna direct it. He's capable of doing this, and we're gonna do a rewrite based on your notes. And if you don't like it, we take it elsewhere. He said, okay, cool. So
you went.
yeah, I was like, thank God. Thank God. We can do something now. And so it was all stepping stones. So, wrote it. I wrote the draft in about 2 months. I thought it was done after a month, but then they were, my producers and the person that was running Spike's company at the time, Sam Kitt, was like, let's just give it a little bit more time. Let's try a couple more things. So I did. It took another month, and then they greenlit it.
And that was what year?
That was 1998. That's summer of '98.
That's fast.
Yeah, it is. No, you're absolutely right. It's fast. It didn't seem fast at the time.
97, 98. I mean, that's.
Yeah, well, you know what? It was the right script at the right time.
Right.
I always tell this story, right? Like, I've written things that were before its time.
Right.
And I've written things late, Everyone's doing the same thing. But that Best Man just kind of hit the right tone, the right castability, and the studios were ready for it. The acting world was definitely ready for it, and I just kind of struck a chord.
So I'm gonna ask you this because I have my own perspective. Why do you think, if we look at all of the Best Mans, the movies, and then of course the series on Peacock, why do you think it resonated so well?
Well, I think it's a reflection of us. I think it's a reflection of authentic Black people, the way they see themselves, and in some instances, aspirationally so. Yeah, I think The Best Man, in its purest form, is it's been called a romantic comedy.
It's romantic comedy. It's a drama. It's
also a bromance.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I think that, brothers want to see themselves, in that way. Women want to see brothers like that.
Yep.
Everyone wants to love or be loved. And I think that it was certainly a refreshing look at Black American life.
Yep.
And it's always been my mission to normalize Black life in America. So I think that's it was a reflection of them. They saw, these very beautiful people who are fun, funny, relatable, down to earth. A lot of times, particularly before Best Man, Black educated people on screen were very archetypal. Hello, how are you? I went to Harvard.
Yes.
They're so bougie. They're so, inaccessible.
There you go.
And I don't know that dude.
Right.
Right? I don't know none of those people. Right? And if I do, I don't like them.
Right.
Here we are, educated people, and they're all a little bit different,
Or it was and again, I love the movie. It was hilarious, but it was that Joseph Phillips character in Strictly Business.
Yes.
And then Hood, Tommy Davidson.
100%.
And it was as if there was nothing in between.
Right.
When it's like, no, and then and again, I love the movie. That was funny. Even when the Halloran brothers, they come, like who these hoods who come in, and when it's like, we know Black bankers.
Exactly.
That's not how folks roll.
And I'm gonna tell you what, particularly having gone to Georgetown, yes, a predominantly white institution, but a lot of Black people there, and the people that I was I'm not the only one,
right,
that's been, in white spaces their whole lives, and now I got a congregation of Black folks that I can all relate to, and they all different experiences and whatnot. So my experiences there were certainly, helped me to kind of conceive of The Best Man. And I think The Best Man holiday, I really wanted Black people to emote at the movie theater. I don't think had that opportunity unless somebody gets killed, or shot or whatever, like it's a tragedy. And yes, Mia dying was a tragedy, but it was like somebody that you felt very, very close to that, and it wasn't senseless, like they got, murdered. It was an insidious disease. I think with Best Man Final Chapters, it's so funny. I've been reading a lot of people who say, I did not know I needed that. And I think particularly, I'm getting up there in age. The people who grew up with the best man are getting up there in age, and they're like, oh man, like menopause, yeah, and like divorce, yeah, and like something. I want to do something different with my career, yeah. I see all. It's a
wife
reflection.
died, I'm totally lost, and I'm banging everything that moved.
Oh yeah.
And you just totally, dude, what are you doing? You're driving yourself crazy.
Right. And so I think that it's really it's just a relatability that a lot of black audiences have been starving for.
Yes.
And so I'm glad. I wasn't sure if we were going to achieve it with the television show because it's a very different animal. Television is.
Here's how this was interesting. A lot of people were commenting before I watched it.
Yeah.
And the reason before I even watched one, I knew it had done its job when folks were begging for more.
Yeah.
They were begging for more. I think everything you said is absolutely correct. I think the reason it has resonated, unlike any other, and this is the key, franchised. Because the problem, so you take, a lot of us love Love Jones.
Yes. One of my favorites.
But it was just that. And so you're like, okay, but what happened to him? What was next? You take all the best man. What you're dealing with is now you have people. So I'm 54. I'm 55 in November. Now all of a sudden, your life is actually mirroring the same. So really, they were absolutely a reflection of this generation.
Yes.
So while we are growing up, growing older, so were those characters. And so now you are absolutely identifying with all those different elements. And yes, it's a movie, but it's not really fiction.
Yeah. No.
That's the thing.
All very true. I agree with everything you're saying. Like we wanted to deal with some real stuff. We wanted to, be current. We wanted to, and again, the relatability of the characters is so strong, and people feel a kinship. They think these characters are their friends, or they know somebody.
I mean, the whole Tay Diggs and Sanaa deal, where so it's funny watching it because my wife was sick and tired of Sanaa. She was she was like going off. But then you have folks who were going like, yeah, dog, Tay, you've been selfish your entire being. And so it was just interesting watching all of those different pieces and flow. And I just think that the reality is white audiences, they have had those things.
Oh yeah.
They've had the movies and they've had all this sort of stuff like that.
And several different iterations of it.
Yes, we've always had, frankly, the one-off. That's what I'm saying, that one movie. So the ability to be able to have multiple movies and to see them grow, to see them develop, and to see them lose, to see them gain or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is helping folks themselves go through it. I think, I absolutely believe, and again, thinking about, not this with the series, which is really for me the third, I sort of think the same way with Tyler's Why Did I Get Married? I mean, there are couples who are, so you're like, we saw what happened with the second one. Folks were like, yo, I know that cat.
Right.
And this has helped me deal with the same situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful thing when I want to talk about the debates that people are having about the characters and Harper was the true villain. Oh no, Robin's the true villain. I'm like, God, I didn't even know I had villains in this thing. It's like they're just people with their flawed individuals.
Right.
And so that's beautiful, and it's also beautiful that people feel like that they know these characters, and that there's so much relatability, to them.
Yeah, but there was texture. They were not one-dimensional characters.
Right.
Even Terrence Howard's character.
Right.
It was like the first one, the tension between him and his dad, you didn't see it.
Right. But you heard about it. And then it really shows up in final chapters. Yeah.
And that's the thing. And then you start to remember, hold up, well, I go back to one. Oh,
right.
That scene. Oh, now we're seeing what.
Yeah. Yeah, it
had depth.
the thing is, when I wrote The First Best Man, I wasn't planning on, a sequel, and certainly wasn't planning on a series. But you planted those seeds, and you kind of, carry them through. Now it's funny, like when when The Best Man holiday happened, and the little girl wipes Quentin's face. That again was not like, oh, that's his daughter. I'm gonna but I remember my cousin, not Spike, but a different cousin, watched the movie, a very early cut, and was like, why did that little girl wipe his face? I was like, she was feeling for him. She wanted. He's like, that's not his daughter. I was like, no, but you give me an idea, And so, and there were a lot of people that they were like, oh, what's that connection? What's that connection? And I was like, well, let's do that. Like, so, I wanted to carry that through also. So again, there are things that like weren't necessarily planned, but you look at them and you say, okay, how do we thread that through?
Right.
All the stories.
COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
Take back the mic, take back the mic, take back the mic, take back the mic.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties have waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate
that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready. And we won't be silent anymore.
I read, and I rarely do these in interviews, but I had to ask because I remember reading it. So you do Undercover Brother.
Yeah.
And Spike told you don't do it.
That's not, well.
So I was, okay, whatever, this was like years ago.
Okay.
And his whole deal was, Malcolm, don't do Undercover Brother, because whatever the explanation was, whoever was producing or whatever, you were not going to be able to do it the way you were supposed to do it. And I said, I need to ask Malcolm that.
No, it wasn't quite like that. The thing, here's what was happening. I was writing a follow-up to Best Man. It wasn't, anything directly related to Best Man, but I was writing another script for the studio, and it was called Sex and a Married Man. And I had written it, but it didn't really have an engine to like propel forward. It didn't have what The Best Man had. It was more like a character piece, and like all these kind of individual things. And 40 Acres was going to produce it. Here comes an offer to do Undercover Brother, which I really loved, the animated cartoon that John Ridley had made. And I was like, this would be a cool thing to do. And they were making that movie. They were not making mine. And, I don't think Spike was happy about that, about me jumping ship to do another producer's movie.
Got it.
And I think, yeah, I mean, in hindsight, well, not hindsight, I wouldn't say that. I'm glad I did that movie. But it was very difficult because when you do a movie like The Best Man, it don't cost a lot of money. And then they have bigger fish to fry, right? They're not really thinking. They're like, okay, that cost $9 million. That should be fine. Whatever. If it sucks, we don't have a big loss. If it's great, we win, right? Undercover Brother, you have a very powerful producing team with Imagine, with this Brian Grazer and Ron Howard. Now, at that time, Brian Grazer had made Nutty Professor, Liar Liar, The Grinch Stole Christmas, all these like amazing big ass movies. Right. And here's Undercover Brother, who what he wanted to make was a Black Austin Powers. But I'm like, this is a blaxploitation hero. And this is about race and fighting against the man. And there was tension about, and then the studio expectations for a movie like that are higher. So the spotlight is bigger and the scrutiny is bigger. So, and it's a comedy. So it's a very different muscle to exercise than what I considered a drama with The Best Man. Kind of a personal drama.
Right.
That had comedic moments. And that's a movie that was almost 2 hours long. Undercover Brother had to be 90 minutes or shorter, right? So the rhythm of it has to be different. You have to like direct your actors differently. So there was a lot, it was a big, big learning curve on that movie for me. And so, yeah, I mean, it was tough, and I definitely had a lot of arguments and fights, and I almost had a nervous breakdown working on that movie because it was unlike anything I had done before, and it was hard.
See, the reason I think really unpacking that is, so do you believe that you were ready? Earlier you talked about a script hits at the right time, the right moment. Reflecting on it, were you ready to direct that movie at that stage of your career? Would have gone differently if you had more experience?
Oh, for sure. But the good thing about, see, here's the thing. I learned a lot. I learned a lot on that movie. And by the time we got to the place where we were doing reshoots, I knew what I had to do. You know what I mean? So it was like I said, very big learning curve. 9/11 happened in the middle of that, when we were doing editorial. So like we had a bunch of we had a guy jumping off of a building, like Undercover Brother was jumping off of a huge high rise and parachuting, right? But at the time, remember all those people jumping off the World Trade Center? That was scary. We were talking about, George Bush and not glowing terms and all kinds of stuff. And so, and what was the term? Compassionate Republicans or compassionate conservatives?
Compassionate conservatism. Right.
Yeah, and so we were making fun of that. And so there was oh, we're coming together as a country. So I was like, oh boy. So it was really, again, very rough and trying to navigate that space. But I also knew in another director's hands, that could turn into a minstrel show. And I was like, let that happen. So, I wanted Undercover Brother to be, to be true to the blaxploitation thing, but also to everything that I knew to be true about black people and heroism and the whole 9 yards. So, it was, again, a big learning curve, but I'm glad I did it. But what it did was shape a lot of my career after that. Like there was I've told the story a couple of times, but when I did that movie, I was a little burnt out by it because it went on for a long time. I had to do Roll Bounce, was a smaller movie, which I thought was great. I loved it, and I did that instead of doing Hitch. I was offered Hitch. Okay, now you asked the question, were you ready to direct that movie? Maybe not. But it taught me a lot about studio expectations and all these other things that I wasn't, I did not want to go through that again. With Hitch, they came to me, right? I was the only, but I knew that the script wasn't done and said, we're gonna have writers working around the clock. We're gonna, and we're gonna have new pages every day and it's gonna be great. And I was just like, oh my God, big star, big studio expectations.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that again. Like I don't want to do that right now. And I'm just small that I feel I have control over. Now, I do Hitch in a heartbeat now, like it's nothing, right?
Right.
But then, what I chose to do was not put that kind of thing on myself. That I might have gotten burnt. I might have left the business. And who's to say that Hitch would have been the movie with me at the helm?
Right.
As opposed to the director that did it.
See, the reason why I think that what you just said is important, because I've said to folk, when you're negotiating, know your number. Because if you start negotiating a number that's way above your actual talent, you're not measured on your talent. I said, you're measured by that number. And I said, you got to really understand that. And people go, yeah, but if you got opportunity, because when I took over Chicago Defender, I'll never forget, we're sitting in the courtyard Marriott lobby. I'm a consultant for 3 months. Clarence Nixon is the CEO of Real Times, that parent company owns it. He's like, look, we need to go ahead and finalize this thing. I'd already prayed on it, and literally 110 was a number. We're sitting in the lobby. He goes over to where they have the snacks and stuff. And he goes, okay, I think we should do 110. And I go, good. That was it. A friend of mine goes, oh, man, you could negotiate higher. I was like, no. I said, when you get the number and I said, where my skill set was, I was very clear.
Right.
My skill set was not, for me, 175, 200. It was at that moment in 2004. It was that.
Sure.
And when you know that, when you know you better than anybody else, to your point, when you know I can't give my all, I'm gonna get burnt out. I gotta be able to see that thing all the way through, and I will be doing a disservice not just to the studio, to the other actors, but really myself.
Ultimately, yeah.
Because what I tell them, if you go for that number that's higher and you fail, I say what ends up happening is you can actually get knocked down lower.
Oh yeah.
Lower than where you actually are, and you gotta grind to get back. And I said, there's beauty in saying thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like, we have this thing in the industry called director jail, and there's a lot of people in director jail, like, because they're like they haven't, done the right thing. They had a movie that failed, whatever, and
didn't Tim Story deal with that? He did a movie,
yeah.
and it was like I was reading the story. He caught hell because the expectation was this, and he had to go do a bunch of other stuff to sort of get back.
Yes, no, it's true. It happens. It really does happen. And that's how they paint you with that brush, and it's like, oh, he's not gonna be able to do that. And so, on the one hand, I have regretted not doing Hitch. On the other, I'm just like, well, it was what I needed to do at that particular time. And I'm very proud of Roll Bounce. I wish it had done better. And I know, like, that's one of those situations where, like, the studio should have done better about marketing that movie. And I'll tell you, it was funny when it was the Super Bowl, January 2005. Yeah, January 2005. They premiered War of the Worlds trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Spielberg and Tom Cruise, and it was huge. The next day, every movie studio scrambled to get off the July 4th date. Scrambled. They were like, oh my God, we got to move everything. So we were slated to come out like a week after 4th of July, and they moved us to September. And I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. This is a summer movie, right? And then they were like, well, there was a Martin Lawrence movie that rebounded, but that was theirs, and there was a Bad News Bears with Billy Bob Thornton that was going to come out. They thought it was going to be competing, and they said, well, we could put it actually with War of the Worlds, and we were like, huh. And then we thought like they would have had to just go for it, and like we would have had some spillover or something. And now that I think about it, they probably should have done that because it gave them too much time to think, and they couldn't get white audiences into that movie. And so they decided to market to nobody.
Wow.
Because again, when they talk about like a movie that doesn't cost a lot of money, they're kind of like, we're not going to spend a ton of money marketing this thing because this will be fine on cable and DVD and da-da-da-da. And it tested like through the roof. But it's, again, you have expectations and you want things to happen. And when they don't, it's very tough. It's a tough pill to swallow, but you try to move on from it and learn from it.
See, I think that's the part of the business that the average everyday person doesn't understand. They see, I think Kenya Barris was talking about this in an interview recently, where he was like, look, people don't understand. You could write a script, but if somebody else is directing it, that director has a vision. And he's like, my vision, writing it, totally different than how it ended up. But on the flip side, I think about Gina Prince Bythewood, Beyond the Lights. I think how that movie was marketed was ridiculous. That and the reason I really paid more attention to it because I was in it. And she called me. She was like, "Yo, I got something for you. You're gonna play you. Just sit down and do you." Great. But they tried to market it like what was that movie? Not
Bodyguard.
Not the book.
The Bodyguard. Notebook.
Really more like the Notebook. And it was interesting. It was just like it was like the you know, the beach scenes and, you know, the ocean, everything like that. When I was going, no, that's Beyonce. It's the pop star.
Yep.
And it was like, that's the hook. And they tried to make it, and this is where a lot of people trying to appeal to a white audience. This love affair story was like, no, that's the story right there.
Right.
And I think, and Gina talked about that again, the frustrating part is you can go through all those battles and make the movie, but if it's not marketed properly, Robert Townsend talked about that with the 5 heartbeats.
And
it's out of your hands.
It is. I mean, and it's your job. What your job is to make the best movie possible. That's all you can do, really. And like, you can work with the studio about, you know, hey, like, let's market this the right way. But so many things have to happen. Not just the marketing. Your release date is incredibly important. You know, like what's happening the week prior, what's happening the week after. You know, like, if you don't have the right release date, you're not necessarily going to meet your number. Like Best Man Holiday, we were sandwiched between the second week of Thor, and then the following week was going to be the next Hunger Games. So like, we could have made $100 million if we had one more week of just to be in the clear. But you know, we still did well, and it was a good release date. But so many things have to go right. Girls Trip was on another level, right? Because it was marketed well. We had a great release date. People needed to laugh in 2017 because Armageddon was happening with, you know, in the world, or certainly in the United States.
Right.
And people wanted that thing. And then you had a very, very target audience of black women who are very loyal,
right,
moviegoers. They saw themselves and like, oh, I'm going to see that. And it was a huge hit.
You had like 5 boxes, and you checked all 5 boxes.
We did. And like, again, it doesn't always happen.
Right.
And again, so many things have to happen right. I mean, like, you know, who knew a pandemic was going to happen? And, you know, or something, you know, 9/11 happens. It's like, you don't know what's going to affect people's moods.
Now, I was told that Girls Trip was initially supposed to be on the Tom Joyner cruise, and that there were talks and stuff just broke down or whatever. That's what I was told by the Joyner folks.
Well, you know, that was a different movie.
Okay.
We were there was talk of doing that, but when Will Packer pitched me the idea, it was like, you know, I had made Best Man Holiday. He had done the second Think Like a Man, and he was like, look, we should just take the women from, you know, 4 women from our movies and like, you know, make black women behaving badly, and at Essence. And I was like, yeah, dope, I'm in, right? Like that was the pitch.
That's where he got engaged.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, that was the pitch. I remember the Tom Joyner thing was like, there was a couple of different writers I was working with, but that was separate and apart. It was never like in that conversation. And you know, listen, and I'm glad Will and I teamed up on that one because it was the right thing. Because we were talking for a while to like figure, okay, what are we gonna? We need to work together. What's it gonna be? Thankfully, it was that one.
And of course, in making that, again, you talk about how all these things connect, but also so many. First of all, you got 400,000 people coming in for this one event. So
bigger than the Super Bowl.
So guess what? When it's time for the movie to come out, you got a built-in audience who's going to come out and actually watch it. I sort of think about Tyler talks about that when he's kind of like, look, when you got a loyal audience, they gonna rock with you.
Yeah,
they gonna rock with you.
But you better deliver,
right?
You better deliver, particularly on a comedy. You know, comedies are really hard. And again, I go back to Undercover Brother, the training ground of that, and just knowing how to work with actors, work with comedic actors in particular. You know, Dave Chappelle, Neil Patrick Harris, Shy McBride, you know, Eddie Griffin. These were all really, really skilled comics. It went further when I worked on Third Iteration of Barbershop. Cedric, Anthony Anderson, Dion Cole, Regina Hall, Lamorne Morris. I mean, all these folks who just make it their business to make you laugh and always be in the moment. So like, directing comedy is a good training ground to where I got to, Girls Trip. So I knew what I was doing. I knew how to craft jokes and the rhythm and all this kind of stuff. So but still, at the same time, what I always like to do, because I always come from a place of character, and you have to care about these characters.
Right.
If you don't, you can have laughs, but they're gonna be a little bit hollow.
Right.
If you care about the people, you're gonna be emotionally invested and you're gonna laugh harder. And so it's always important to me to really have the characters feel relatable, accessible, and in the case of Girls Trip, we want to really give the audience a very immersive experience and make them feel like they were there at Essence Fest.
Right.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
When you think about where you are now, but I'm gonna go back to Malcolm X when Spike went over budget. For people who don't understand, you're not just directing a film. You literally are the CEO of a project. You are factoring in finances. You're factoring in time. You're factoring in weather. The job of a director is not just getting behind that camera. It's a lot of stuff that's moving all at one time and requires a really masterful skill set to deal with it all at one time. Because it's not like just, okay, you know what? I'm just a television show. I'm directing the show. I'm not doing the camera work. I'm just sort of doing this here. No. You
Well, there's a lot that goes into it, in the preparation of all that stuff. You got to communicate. You have to be a very good communicator. You have to, let people know what you want. And by the way, you're a manager. You're managing departments, and you're managing personalities, and you're managing time. It is my job. I have to be aware of the clock, but I also got to get the product. I also have to get my vision. Again, going back to Undercover Brother, I remember when we did a lot of 18-hour days on that show. And my studio executive said, yeah, I know we're going late and stuff, but I don't want to ever hear, I didn't get it. We didn't get it.
Right.
So I've always had that in my mind, and I've had plenty of producers and line producers say, we're running out of time. We're gonna go with the meal penalty. I'm like, I know, I have to have this. I gotta get it. I'm sorry that we're going to meal penalty, but we need to have this stuff.
For the person, what the hell is meal penalty?
Meal penalty means that every 15 minutes, you're paying the crew a lot of money to not eat, take a break. And so that can add up if you do it time again. I'm the meal penalty master. Like I'm very guilty of that, but it's not like I've wasted time. I try to get as much as I can. Sometimes you gotta make compromises, but I've kind of paid my dues enough to be like
I don't know why they nodding, because look, I don't give a damn about no meal penalty. They said, yeah, you're right. You gonna eat? Well, we gonna get.
You gonna eat? You gonna eat? You be all right?
Yeah, you gonna eat after we get this.
Right. Right. I mean, the best thing the thing I worked on, when I worked on Space Jam, we did what we call French hours, which is 10 and a half hours straight. No meal breaks. Love that, because whenever you take a meal break,
they get the itis.
Itis sets in. It's a little bit of a drag to get people get back on set, gear back up again. Oh, it's. I love the French hours.
See, for me, I did Beyond the Lights, Mario Van Peebles movie, did something for Said show. I think I've done four or five. Downsizing. I remember I flew to Toronto to do Downsizing. And for me, it's why I do live TV. Like even this interview, like they know, when we start, it better be something major.
Right.
For them to go, hey, hold tight, we gotta stop.
Yeah.
And I'm livid. And my deal is we doing a line cut, we ain't sitting here, it's like we're live.
Right.
I could never do what y'all do.
Why?
Because it take too goddamn long.
It does take a while.
I mean, dude, we're sitting here, Mario move his arms. And man, we're sitting here, and it's like, all right, it's a barbershop scene, and because he comes to me, he said, bro, I want you to play the educated, follows the news barber, and I was like, I only got one condition. I said, I got to rock an ascot and cufflinks. And he was like, what? I said, when I grew up, the brother Harvey, who cut out hair, Harvey was always dressed, clean.
Right.
Always. Cologne, sharp, creases. I said, I gotta be a clean barber. I said, ode to Harvey, who cut my hair growing up. He was like, all right, got it. And it was like, yo, so we're shooting this, okay, switch, okay, different angle, this. Then like Paul Rodriguez, like forget his line. I'm like, yo, bro, they ain't the line. I'm like, man, we got to go. And again, and I had to like leave, I had like a speech or something like that. And I was like, and I'm sitting there going,
yeah.
I'm hitting the GPS like, how far from the airport? I'm like, yeah, man, come on. It was.
Don't plan nothing else. Don't plan. If they say you're gonna be on set that day, don't plan on leaving early.
Hey,
it's not gonna happen.
Wait a minute. That happened when I did Black Lightning. Same thing. I was like, yo, Ro got a flight.
Yeah.
Wait, no, it was Black. No, Black Lightning was fine. Black Lightning was fine. When I did the quad, bruh, I'm like, we shot it at Morris Brown. They break, move everything to a warehouse, completely set up, and I'm in there like, say, when we shooting this scene? And they all just like, oh, how it normally happens. I was like, the flight's at 8.
Yeah.
Roland gotta be here, because that speech is $15,000.
Right.
Now, let me just be clear with y'all.
Yeah.
This ain't $15,000.
No.
It's like,
no, look, it is.
It's just a different.
It is. And, like, directors are very precious. I mean, some are, less precious. I mean, they're a run and gun type, right? But like, when I don't know how many people were in that barbershop scene you're talking about, but I'm sure it was more than 4 or 5.
Yeah, it was. It probably was about 12 folks in there.
Did they all
guys
have lines?
In the chairs. A number did.
Yeah.
And it
At
was
least
like,
5 had,
and we
had
were
lines,
like,
right?
and it was like back and forth, and it was like, no, this angle, this, and again, for me, because it's live television, I'm sitting here
You got
like,
all your angles.
right? I'm sitting here like, say, dog, why you ain't got 7 cameras in here?
Yeah.
Right? And that's just, again,
right.
And so for me, seeing that process, really up close and being in it. I was like, yeah, dude. I said, I told Carrie, watch this shoot. I said, Carrie, I take live TV all day. I said, because you know what?
It's over.
Just like for a lot of actors, it's Broadway. When it's time to go, yo, we hitting. I don't care what you're going through.
Right.
When that curtain hits, or if it's straight up, hey, that red light, come on. I don't care what you better go.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, it's something that, when you're in school, you learn like your different angles. You got to get your coverage. It's all for editorial because, as Kenya said, like, Yeah, you write something, it's one way. When you put it on his feet with a director, actors, director of photography, production designer, costume designer, it becomes something else, right? It becomes a different movie. Even when you get an editorial, it's different. Because the movie will find itself, and everything that you shot ain't gonna make it.
Right.
And you swear you need it.
Right.
Like, we gotta have that scene. If you don't have that scene, it's not gonna make sense. If you don't, no. You're like, you know what? She gave him that look. That said everything. Take those 13 minutes, get rid of them. And that's a lot of work that you left on the floor.
Right.
And the actors get mad at you, whatever. But the movie can't sustain. The movie tells you what it is.
Do you, when it comes to editing, this is the other issue, are you in that every step of the way? Or, because again, some you have these brilliant editors, but that process. Because again, for the person at home just not understanding, it's just, you can shoot it, but how it's edited also impacts how long it is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the short answer is yes, I'm involved every step of the way with editorial. Mostly though, when it comes to like after I've done shooting, because I can't. I mean, I can look at dailies and the stuff, the footage that we shot the day before, but I have a very good memory about what we have shot.
Got it.
You know, I see it in real time. I'm like, okay, we're good there. I don't need to look at it again. And it does. It gives you some different perspective when you see it again. You're kind of like, oh, that's not how I remember it, or it is exactly how I remember it, and we can use this line, da 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 da. So yes, I'm in the process in working with the editor pretty much every day when we're doing post, particularly because a director with a studio picture has 10 weeks to get the cut where it needs to go. And which seems like a lot of time, but it seems insurmountable when you're first, get the assembled cut and it's way too long and it's like, I don't even like this movie. Like, this is not good. It's not funny. It's boring. Do I care about these people? And then you start to say, okay, you know what? It's a big block of marble, and it's your job to just chisel it and figure it out and shape it and sand it and do all the things that's necessary to make it, something that's fun and funny. And you put it in front of an audience and say, what do you think about this? How does this work? How are you feeling about this? Are they laughing in the right place? Is the rhythm of the cut feeling right? Does it drag in places? So it's all those things. Now, I've worked with other editors. On the editor on Space Jam, he was so kind of experienced and didn't need me over his shoulder, right? Not that my other editors do, but it's just been the thing that we've worked out. And I'm happy to see a cut. He'll go for a couple of weeks or a week or so, maybe 10 days. Then say, hey, I've got something to look at. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, let's fix this. Let's fix that. Let's try that. Oh, yeah. You know what? I didn't think you were gonna do that. That's a really interesting thing. And then your editor's a great barometer for how your movie is doing, right? They're like, so does it work? They're like, yeah, it works. It's funny. But you could use this and you could use that. And if we could try that, and they can show you all kinds of ways of how to redo things. And a good editor is like your best friend, in the movie making process. It's pretty extraordinary.
What I tell my producers, I want them to go. I want them to shoot. And I had a producer. She was like, okay, why? I said, because when you're sitting with the editor, I want you to see what you missed. Mm-hmm. But then I told her, so you take these new cameras. So you got the viewfinder attached. I said, no. I said, you can't shoot with viewfinder. She was like, what do you mean? Like the fold out panels? I said, no, I need your eye in that lens. And several of them have said, okay, I'm not understanding. I said, because here's the thing about when you're shooting, and because I first started shooting at 13. Mm-hmm. I said, when that thing is on your eye, I said, you're only seeing what's there. I said, when a viewfinder's open, you're seeing it, but you're also seeing everything that's on the outside. I said, I want you to put your eye on that thing. I said, and I want you to feel it. And a couple of them, they were like, okay, I'm not understanding. I said, okay, let me take you back to a still photographer. I said, when you're shooting a still photography, so when you're shooting a still, you're looking at every facial expression. You're looking at when the mouth is open, eyes are closed, or whatever. I said, you're looking for that, right? I said, because it's so intimate.
Yes.
It's you and that person.
Yep.
I said, that's how I want you to shoot. I said, because when you do that, then when you sit in that edit bay and you go, damn, I wish I had this. I had this. I said, you have to train your brain to know what you want. And you can't do that unless you shoot. And they came back and they were like, they were like, oh my God, it made me a better producer. I said, yes. I said, because now, if you have an experienced photographer, they know what you need.
Right.
I said, but sometimes you're gonna have to say, I need that shot.
Yep.
I need that shot because when I go back and edit, I'm gonna want that shot somewhere. And so the same thing. And they were just like, I never thought. I said, I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, no, in editorial, what you want are choices. You want to be able to, be able to get out of a scene, get into a scene. If a scene is not quite funny as you wanted it to be, but you still think you need the information from it, you got to find ways to get out of it. And it's just, you cannot. I learned on Best Man. I did a lot of one-ers where I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to, the camera's I'm gonna follow this character over here, and they're gonna have a conversation, and then we're gonna pull back with them, and just on my Woody Allen shit. Like I was like, oh, like I'm gonna like have this kind of like this Fellini, type, thing, and like those are the first things that go out in editorial because they're one-ers and they take up time. And like, fortunately, they were things that could come out. But you're mad at the time because you're like, oh, it was so great. But you can't fall in love with your style. You have to be beholden to the movie that you're trying to tell. Period. Everything else, even the actors give you the best performances. It's like that scene is not gonna make it. It's unfortunate because they left it all on the floor. But it ain't gonna.
See, that probably is the one thing that would absolutely drive me crazy. Having great stuff that never sees the light of day unless it's on, the
DVD extras.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's hurtful. It's hurtful for you. It's hurtful for the actor. In particular, if you've put a lot of thought into it. But then you look at the bigger picture and you say, we don't need it. When the movie is not going to be hurt without it. And if it's not, you got to take it out.
What do you really, really, really want to do that you haven't done?
There's a few things.
I think one, we talked about one, but what do you really?
I mean,
that it's like,
at this point, there's a musical that I want to do that's, if we can get it going, it's going to be amazing. I was trying to, at one point, tell the story about the 68 Olympics. I really wanted to do that. And at this point, I just want to do stuff that is a little unexpected. I really admire filmmakers like Steven Soderbergh and Ang Lee, who they're very versatile.
Right.
And you never know what they're gonna do next. And so, like, I wanna be able to do something that's like not the regular thing, or like, oh, he's done that before, or I thought he would do that.
Meaning something that, I didn't expect Malcolm to do that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, in a lot of ways, nobody expected me to do Space Jam. I expected to do Space Jam, but the opportunity came along and I was like, this is a great opportunity to do something. So I did it, and it was, again, another big learning curve. And also, what it did was, I was intimidated by these big visual effects movies, and and animation, but it's all just storytelling tools. And it's like, oh, I get it. I don't have to be intimidated by that anymore.
How do you say no to the check?
It's easy to say no to a check.
Not for a lot of people. But a lot of people.
I would just say, like, don't let it be about the check. It's got to be about the thing that you really want to do, right? Like, there's other ways to make money. Now, that being said, don't be stupid. Like you gotta. It's also a job. It's not just oh, this is my art. I have to. I mean, keep your integrity.
Mario said to me, I did that to do that.
Yeah, sometimes that's necessary. I give you example number one, Scary Movie 5. I don't want to do that movie. That movie's terrible. I mean, it's awful. Absolutely awful.
Why is it awful?
Because, number one, when we first did it, when I first was brought onto it, there was no villain. There was no bad guy. Because it was Paranormal Activity, right? Like that was the main thing. So it was a ghost. So it wasn't tangible. It wasn't, you couldn't really do it in the same way the other movies could do. Mm-hmm. So then they had to switch a whole bunch of stuff. And by that time, I was out of there. I was gone. I was doing Best Man Holiday. I'm like, y'all handle that. So half of that movie, I never shot.
Really?
Yo, yeah. Yeah, half the movie I never shot. And it was, what a crazy experience. I mean, like, but that was mortgage money. You need, sometimes you got to do that. And the thing about working is work begets more work. Mm-hmm. And so, because, the studio executives don't want to hear, oh, he's waiting at home and he's developing a couple of things. No, they want to hear you're busy or you're available, right? That not, when I say available, like, oh, he's gonna be finished with this thing and then.
Right.
They don't want to hear like, oh, he's just, kind of waiting for the phone to ring. It's like, you are so much better to be like busy.
It's sort of like the example, they say, oh, if you really want to get a woman, have a woman.
Kinda.
They like, when you ain't got no woman, it's amazing what happens, your phone not ringing and folks are not interested.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy in that regard. So yeah, I mean, look, they want to know that other people want you too. I'm talking about film executives. I'm not talking about women.
Right.
I'm talking about film executives. They want to know, like, oh man, like we got to get in line. We got to make sure that we do the next thing with Malcolm Lee. So it's like I'm fortunate where I after I did Soul Men, I was a little burnt out and I was like, I'm just gonna take a break. Little did I know that the business was changing. There's a writers' guild strike, which is also coming up soon again. Changed the industry in a lot of ways. And I wrote a spec that I just knew was gonna sell. It didn't sell, and I didn't work for 3 years.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm never doing that again. I'm never saying I'm too busy again. I'm saying yes to everything. Even if it was below my quote, I'm going to work on the thing that is going. You got to get on the train that's moving. So I got on numerous trains. We were supposed to do the sequel to After Best Man Holiday. Studio ended up not wanting to do it. They were dragging their feet. Ice Cube and Bob Title came along with Barbershop. I was like, okay, yes, please. Let's go. Jumped on that. Girl Trip came along. Okay, on to that. And these were things I wanted to do.
Right.
But sometimes you think you don't want to do, and that's Scary Movie 5 is that movie.
So you said a musical.
Musical. I'd like to do a drama. I fell into this comedy thing, and I love comedy, but I want to do something where I can be in those conversations with Gina's and Barry Jenkins.
So it's part of the problem that when you are so good at this and they turn out so well, it becomes, frankly, the box?
I don't know if it becomes the box, but it's like you talk about like saying no to the bag, right? It's like, here comes the bag. And it's like, well, I'll do that. Because, the movie that you want to make, that's harder to make, the drama or the period, sports movie or the musical is difficult to make. It's harder to make. But we're going to make this, and we'll pay you this. And then you're like, okay, well,
let's go ahead and last.
Yeah, it's like, hey, sometimes you just gotta be like, okay, I'm gonna do that and I'll keep developing this other thing. But, hopefully you get to a place in your career where you're just like, okay, I have some choices here. But even then, I'm in a deal now with both Universal Pictures and Universal Television. And, they gave us overhead and it's like, I like this movie that I've got over here. It's not here, then it's not here, but this is the beast that's feeding you, so you gotta feed the beast back.
Somebody's killing poor people, and it's going on.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID. If you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
That's right.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? Ready, ready, ready. We are a resurrection, and we are ready.
And we won't be silent anymore.
You mentioned Steven Soderbergh.
Yes.
He's done several movies that he shot with the iPhone.
Yeah.
Have you considered that?
Not really. I mean, I think it would depend on the project. You know, I would consider it if it was the right thing. You know what I mean? It's viable. Why not? But you know, unfortunately, the movie industry right now is in a very weird place. And I got into film to work on a big canvas. You know, I want that big screen. I want people to go into the movie theater and the lights dim down and eat their popcorn and laugh together and jump scares together and or just be riveted together.
Right.
It's communal experience. That's what I got into the business for. So now it's all on television and it's a little bit of a letdown. So for me, it's a little bit tough to figure out what the next move is, and then if something that I want to make that I really think that belongs in the theater doesn't get to the theater, that'd be very disappointing. But then again, I get the economics of it also.
But so how do you balance again? You're absolutely right. The experience in the theater from also where the consumer has just totally changed, where the consumer's like, listen, I'm not interested in it. We're at my brother's house and I've got 6, 7 nieces and nephews literally crowded on a couch looking at a laptop. I'm talking about that television, right? The distance between me and you, it wasn't even that far. I said, y'all, it's a 50-inch TV right there.
Yeah.
No, we look at it right here.
Yeah, it's very odd, you know. That's how my kids are. Like they'll watch a lot of stuff right on their phones, and I'm like, we got these big TVs. Like, why? Let's watch it. But it's just the way people are consuming content. I mean, it's rare that people are going to see movies in the theater, but you know, the Marvel movies are doing really well. You know, Avatar did really well. Top Gun. It's got to feel like an event. It's got to feel like a spectacle that you can't get anywhere else. And I think the studios have to do a job of just being like, hey, we're doing an exclusive window right here. And it's not going to be on streaming. It's not going to be on anything. Do your exclusive window in the theater, and then do your exclusive window like a month later on your platform, on your streaming platform, you know, or sell it to somebody or whatever. But I'm sure they've looked at that and they say it don't make economic sense.
Right.
So we're gonna do what we gotta do. Like I was heartbroken when Warner Brothers decided to put Space Jam day and date with HBO Max. I was like, I'm screwed. Like I'm not gonna get that big theatrical release that I wanted, worldwide theatrical release.
Right.
After 2 years of like grinding it out on that movie, and I'm just like. But at the same time, I understand the economics of it, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's their money, it's their product.
As a young person who's watching this, or who will come across it 20, 30 years from now, 50 years from now. They want to be a director. They want to be in the movies. They like, I love that idea. What are you telling, what would you tell them the most important thing they should focus on? Just based upon your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think perseverance is very important. Like, you're gonna hear no a lot, you know, and I think, you know, there's a lot of people that just can't take no. I don't want to hear no. I got depressed, I got upset, I doubted myself. You have to have perseverance and you have to have resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to keep believing in what you're trying to say, right? And then you have to have some insight, like, you know, maybe this is not for me, or maybe this story isn't right at the right time. So you keep chiseling away at it. You just can't give up. You know, if you believe in your talent, you believe in what you have to say, and you're the only person that can say it, keep pursuing it. Because it's not, as easiest ways to make money, don't try and do it because you're trying to be famous, or that you want to be in the limelight or anything like that, because it's not glamorous. It's not always fun. But if you can, you know, find that story that you want to tell and you have to tell, and it's burning inside you, make it happen.
Last question. Is there a movie that you have seen in the last year or two that the average person would have no clue about, that was just a fascinating, well done movie that you loved watching?
You know, I have not been watching a lot of movies because it's really, I'd rather go to the theater to watch them, and I've been not watching on the small screen. But the movie I did see, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen, but is Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's a great movie.
Why?
Just amazing filmmaking, great story, great themes, masterful performances by Michelle Yeoh, you know, and just like it's a lesson in being in editorial, in storytelling. I don't know. It was just like and it was very unique in its style. So like that's exciting, you know, when a filmmaker can do that and, you know, show us something that's not run of the mill, but at the same time, a story that is still accessible. Because I've always wanted, when I was early on, when I was making movies in high school and stuff like that, I'd see the films that some people would make, and I was like, I don't get what the hell they're trying to say. Like I never wanted to be that filmmaker.
Right.
I wanted not to dumb things down, but
right.
Like, let's be entertained.
It's sort of like with me with art. If I don't know what the hell that is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't spend money. I need to look at it and go, that's what that is.
Right. Or I just like it. I just think it's pretty. I think it's beautiful. It's adds something to the room. If I can't, if I'm like confused or I'm like, I just, or somebody's trying, hey, make a home movie and show it to your friends. But don't try to do it from a big audience.
So Nelson George could not interview Spike Lee for American Black Film Festival. They chased me down like a bill collector. And so I interviewed Spike. And I asked him this question. Tanya's in the front row and she howling with laughter. So since you worked on this movie, I'm gonna ask you, what the fuck was Girl 6 about? Now, when I asked that question, the entire room cracked up laughing. Spike cracked up laughing. He went, you been talking to Tanya? Because she said the same thing. And I tell him all the time, I said, what the hell was Girl 6 about?
I don't really know. To me, it's not nearly as confusing as some other things of his that I've seen. Like, I didn't get, it was the remake of Ganja and Hess The sweet blood of Jesus.
The blood drip. Right.
I
And
ain't-
actually, he did that as a crowdfunding deal and actually gave money for it. I'm with you. I saw and I went.
I don't know. I didn't get that.
I'm
Girl
still-
6. You know, it's funny. I was on the set here, and I mean, you know, there were some interesting things in it. It was about this woman who was kind of devolving, losing herself. Right? She wanted to be an actress, and she got into the phone sex thing, and she was starting to lose herself, and had to come out of that. Right? I think it's what Susan Laurie Parks was trying to say, and along with Spike. But I'll tell you an interesting story. Not that interesting, but how it relates to me. I'm bringing it back to myself, of course, as always. But he was shooting that, and we were shooting the scene where Isaiah Washington and Teresa Randall kiss on the middle of the street, right? Then all these phones fall down, and he set the camera up, and did the take. And I said before he, you know, we shot. I said, "Are you gonna do like a tighter, you know, you gonna tighten up the lens on this too?" He's like, "Nah," right? I said, "Okay." So then we shot it, and then you're like, "Malik, change the lens, tighter." I was like, I mean, not that he even, because you know, it's what's funny. I back then when it happened, I was so proud of myself. Right. I'm like, oh, I've got something to contribute. But as I reflect on it, people make suggestions to me all the time on set. You gonna do that? And sometimes I'll be like, nah, I'm not doing that. Other times I'm like, you know what, that's a good idea. And even if I've dismissed it, you know, I'm like, you know what, that's actually a good, because you know, directors all have egos. You know, like we have all the ideas, but sometimes it's not all in our heads. And so it's good to keep an open mind and take contributions from anybody.
Right. Favorite Spike Lee film?
Probably Do the Right Thing. But I'm gonna tell you
Is that
something.
because you in that yellow spandex?
No, not because of my yellow spandex. I just think, you know, as an allegorical story, the neighborhood versus the pizza parlor and all these like different characters. It's masterfully done, and it was only his third movie, and I think it's pretty brilliant. Malcolm X was brilliant also. I thought Inside Man is excellent, as a pure filmmaking, like you know, heist type. Great. I mean, amazing, right? I also think Bamboozled is actually very excellent. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are like, oh, what the heck was he trying to?
No.
Yo,
that Bamboozle was.
Are you come on?
Bamboozle was.
Come on.
I dare say that is his most underrated film.
100%.
Now, but what I would say is, for me, out of all of them, and you probably can figure that out based upon how we decide to light this.
Mo Better.
Right there.
I'll tell you what.
The richness, the colors,
beautiful.
How it was like that.
I agree 100%. And I remember first being at the premiere of Mo Better Blues and being astonished by the opening credits. I was like, this is so beautiful.
Yep.
You know, so like beautifully shot, the colors and the richness, everything. I mean, like, I need to look at that movie again because it's really like, I mean, it's not a masterful movie, but the imagery and...
So watch the director's commentary.
Okay.
Because what happened was it was crazy because I'm listening. And so Ernest Dickerson is describing, and again, that's why I love stuff you never hear about. He was talking about a stocking or and he says, well, you can't find it now, that he put over the lens.
Yeah, it's a filter, like a gauze.
To give this certain look. And it just like every time I just think about, even just the poster.
Yeah.
Even just the post, is the colors is so rich, and that's I'm telling you, even when like if you go my studio in DC, how we utilize all the black art in there and the LED lights and everything, and how it just feels.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. How I'm always like that the richness of that.
It's a really very rich palette, and the costuming is great, and it's all like.
And I love that Denzel was just so into him. It was all about the other characters he played. That's also why I like that.
I mean, like just like the jazz musicianship, Denzel, Wesley. That's Wesley's big coming out party. Bill Nunn, Giancarlo Esposito.
Yes, yep.
I mean, Dick Anthony Williams, like just.
And of course, it doesn't get credit for one of the greatest movie lines, but I bet you want some more of that more better, don't you? Great line. And she's like, yeah, I want some of that more better. Great line.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my favorite.
Really? I can see it.
The colors.
It's beautifully done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Great chat.
Yes.